All right.
I can't believe the games industry just admitted that they're the problem. This is like
They are the problem.
Twilight Zone. Recently, developers over at DICE, the guys that are working on Battlefield 6, farming yet another W, have noticed and come forward and said that a lot of players are playing the game under recommended spec and saying that they need to target low-end hardware. What? Is this common sense from the games industry?
Hello? Fancy that, huh?
What timeline are we living in right now? For years now, we've been in a visual state of entropy. We've had these games, millions of dollars, and tons of games that have been completely wasted because they look great in screenshots, but they're utterly lifeless, uninteresting, and in most cases, not even playable for the vast majority of people that are out there. Tell me, what is the point in selling a game that isn't fun or isn't playable? Or in most cases, both. For whatever reason, the games industry has just completely ignored their audience on this, especially when it comes to performance. They've been outpacing us and expecting that we keep up with their overspending and their overcommitment into things that simply just do not matter at the end of the day. Ask any gamer out there, and more times than not, they're going to rank fidelity lower on their list than performance and whether or not a game is fun. Whether it's Unreal Engine 5 upscaling, RTX hair physics, we have been in a performance crisis for far too long, and it is time that the games industry does something about it. Now, I'll admit, performance has always been a bit of a blind spot for me. I overinvest into my hardware, I do a lot of video editing, and more times than not, I can just brute force my way through whatever technical issues a lot of other players are running into. It's not that I don't see the complaints, I just rarely experience them myself.
Yeah, like, I'm probably more on the general side of things. I have what's basically a 3090. I'm probably more towards the middle ground. And I see a lot of the issues. If I'm the middle ground and I'm seeing a lot of the issues, you should know that maybe stop going to the 5090 people.
And I usually try sticking to talking about things that I actually have experienced firsthand, but with the mountain of tech debt.
You're right, you're right. It's definitely a lost art. Although I would say that there are some companies that still do it. Like, from what I understand, as big as the game as it is, Silksong hasn't had any issues I've heard of. There's like 2 other games I was thinking of. I'm trying to remember what games those were, but there was like 2 other games that came out recently that did not have really any issues. Didn't Elden Ring barely have any issues when it came out? Like, it had some, but like, let's be honest, the vast scope of that one, it was bound to have some. But from what I understand, it didn't have really any issues with like performance. Like, there was like 1 or 2 hiccups, like when you first walk out into the map and stuff, but they fixed that within days.
And the Unreal Engine 5 slop that's just been flooding into the market over the past couple of years, even I have started hitting walls. And I, like every...
And that's scary. If the top of the line is hitting walls, maybe do your job like you used to, where you optimized it.
Everybody else cannot justify upgrading my hardware just to be able to pay for somebody else's mistakes. It feels like the bigger the budget, the worse the performance. These massive AAA projects demand more and more just to run, and when the games themselves are unfun, pandering to audiences that don't exist, and run like absolute dog water, you're left asking, why even buy them at all? That question has been absolutely brutal for the games industry because we've seen more and more high-profile releases failing right out of the gate. And we all know the pattern by now, the flashy screenshots, the cinematic trailers, the in-engine cutscenes that look nothing like the final game once it's released, and then when...
What does in-engine cutscene even mean? For me, that feels like just another way to say, hey, this is a cutscene that's probably not going to work nearly as well on your platform.
When the release date does come, what we get is lifeless, boring, stuttery garbage, half hidden under aggressive upscaling, crashing, freezing, sometimes literally unplayable. You'd expect poor optimization out of indie or AA teams, smaller studios with fewer resources, less experience, struggling to get every ounce of performance out of their games, but it's the opposite. It's nearly
Which is kind of weird when you think about it.
every AAA release that's showing up broken because these companies don't understand their audience and they prioritize their release dates and marketing over performance. Hell, most of these companies straight up lie about their system requirements. Look at Monster Hunter Wilds, maybe the most prolific example of a bait and switch this generation. On Steam, Capcom listed the minimum spec as a GTX 1660 and recommended as a 2060.
There ain't no way that computer, those specs run Wilds. I'm sorry. I'm running what is equivalent to a 3090 and a right under the best like processor. And I struggle to run it sometimes. There ain't no way something that's half that runs it.
What? This game barely runs on a 30 or 40 series card.
Yeah.
That's exactly why one of the most popular games of 2025 is now sitting at mostly negative reviews on Steam. The good news is, if you can call it that, it seems like some of these studios are finally waking up to it. They've realized that if they keep overshooting their audience's hardware, well, their games are just going to tank no matter how good they look in a trailer. In an article from Eurogamer written by Connor McCarr titled Battlefield 6 Dev says a significant number of users played the game below minimum recommended specs, as EA points to the importance of weaker hardware. They write a substantial number of Battlefield 6 open beta players were playing the game on or around minimum recommended specs, according to technical director Christian Bull. In an interview with Eurogamer, Bull broke down some of the user data of the initial wave of PC players who hopped on to play the game earlier this month, stating that of the millions of players who were jumping in, a sizable portion of them were doing so on lower end hardware. Speaking about
which I don't doubt, like, I don't think most people go up past what I have. They try to stay on whatever they have for the longest period of time possible.
some of the lengths Battlefield Studios and EA went to ensure that the game was playable on older setups, Bull stated, "We built maps and had to go to our artists and tech artists to adjust these maps so they were more performant. We put a lot of effort across the board to make sure that performance targets were set, and whether you're on minimum spec or ultra spec, you're going to get the experience we're targeting." When asked about how important it is to serve minimum spec players at a time where PC hardware is getting more expensive due to bloated prices or general economic challenges right now, Bull responded by saying, "Minimum spec is certainly one of our most important specs. It's super important from both a commercial and a business perspective. We want as many people playing our game." Bull continued with an anecdote from earlier in the game's development. "We did a lot of analysis. We did tests on the game
Above and below our minimum recommended specs. We figured out what we can hit, what we need to hit from a business perspective, and that was to capture a wide audience. This is what always confused me, why companies didn't do this. Like, why are you constantly pushing and pushing and pushing that upper limit and, like, leaving the lower limit behind? When you know that's, like, lowering and lowering and lowering your, like, your range of people you can, that are gonna buy it. Like, I would say that Monster Hunter Wilds clearly lied, because there ain't no way someone with that low level of, like, tech is gonna run your game. If a 30 and a 40 series are having trouble, a 10 series is gonna die. A 16 series is gonna die. But, that always confused me, why some of these companies, like, tried to, like, shove it higher and higher. Like, what happened to what you used to do, where, like, your games would stick around the lower level, and they would just expand and optimize and go even better and better in that direction.
on a wide range of hardware above and below our,
and then every now and then a game would
we figured out
bump it up,
what we need to hit from a business perspective, and that was to capture a wide audience on PC. It's been super critical. While I appreciate these developers finally taking notice, anybody could have told you this. Steam publishes a monthly hardware survey, and the GTX 1650 ranks number...
They don't look at that. They don't look at that. You telling me you think they look at that? I wish they looked at that. They'd probably be more in the know if they did.
Number 4, the RTX 2070 ranks number 10, and everything else in that top 10 list is either mid-tier 30 or 40 series cards. Yet for some odd reason, we keep seeing these people wanting to flaunt NVIDIA's latest AI upscaling, RTX hair path tracing, and Unreal Engine 5's push button detail, features that most players can't even use. And all this time,
I'm gonna be honest with you, the majority of people that play games don't care if we can see every follicle of hair. We don't care. We care very little, if at all, about most of those physics.
It's being spent chasing these...
I'm telling you, the majority of people who love the ragdoll is way higher.
Tech flexes is not being spent optimizing these games for the hardware that their customers actually own. This is an industry-wide self-inflicted wound. Unreal Engine 5 deserves part of the blame, given how many games have been coming out on that engine. It gives developers way too many shortcuts to cover up for their mistakes rather than actually fix them. The result is a lot of bloated file sizes, technical debt, and a generation of developers that probably aren't even going to know how to be able to solve any of their own performance issues. But it's not just the engines that are making this worse, it's hardware companies that are complicit in this too. NVIDIA keeps pushing features like DLSS frame generation, essentially covering up for unoptimized code by having AI generate extra frames. Instead of actually addressing any of these root issues, these tools are giving publishers and developers more excuses to ship broken games and rely on hardware gimmicks to be able to mask it. Now, with that said, Tim Sweeney, CEO of Epic, the creator of Unreal Engine 5, is still right with his recent comments regarding the criticisms of the engine, where he had said, the primary reason Unreal Engine 5 games don't run smoothly on certain PCs or GPUs is the development process. Going further on to say that many developers begin developing games for high-end hardware, then optimizing and testing on lower-spec devices in the final stages. All this is creating two massive problems for the games industry.
I think Unreal Engine 5 has done way more harm to the industry than it has helped the industry. I'm gonna be honest with you.
First, by targeting high-end hardware, developers end up working backwards. They build for the top 1%, they cram in all the extra bells and whistles, then they realize at the 11th hour that most players can't even boot the thing. So what do they got to do now? Well, they got to start ripping the pieces out, stripping back shaders, scaling back assets, downgrading effects. But by that point, those features are so baked into the game that it destroys the experience at a fundamental level. Try to pull anything out, and then all of a sudden the entire thing collapses, breaking other systems in the process. That's why so many games launch with bizarre bugs or missing features. It's not because the tech is impossible, it's because developers are undoing their own work in a blind panic. Second, and this is the most damning part of all of it, and also the most infuriating, is that optimization is not happening across the entire development cycle. It's being crammed into the very last stretch, right before the game's release, when the game's already locked in and the deadline is set. And the worst part is that those deadlines are not about the players, it's about fiscal calendars. Publishers are shoving these games out the door.
It's about the financiers, the stockholders,
to be able to prop up their quarterly earnings, to be able to make their investor slideshow look
investor
pretty.
meeting.
Marketing drives the stock price, not performance. That's why you see so many of these beautiful trailers and disastrous launches. It's not incompetence, it's a business model that's built on sacrificing quality for Wall Street optics. If for whatever reason you guys think I'm talking out of my ass with this, you can see it plain as day with Capcom. Dragon's Dogma 2 launched in March, just 2 weeks before their fiscal year-end report. Monster Hunter Wilds came out the year after that, at the very last day of February, again, right before earnings. Both times, those games shipped with poor technical condition to be able to impress their shareholders instead of actually serving their players. And both times, the long-term cost was pretty obvious with that. I mean, Monster Hunter Wilds sold 8 million copies in its first month, but since then has only been able to move 500,000 copies. The problem isn't just that these games are broken at launch, it's what the cycle has done to the entire games industry. When publishers are rushing products to be able to meet financial deadlines, when developers are treating optimization as an afterthought, the result is an endless loop of wasted resources and burned trust with their players. Players are going to stop buying these games because they don't believe that they're going to work. Developers are going to burn out trying to patch problems that should have been solved months before the game even came out. It's going to make it even more difficult for these guys to be able to deliver additional content. Publishers are doubling down on their marketing instead of just listening to their audience. It's a vicious cycle where short-term profits are...
It's basically sacrifice your actual players for your monthly earning call. Your yearly earning calls. And I think this has done irreparable harm to Capcom, because I highly doubt they're gonna sell a lot of copies of the next game. Because they pissed off a lot of people with Wilds and how badly it's optimized. Like, is it a good game? I'd say 60-40. Like, it's a decent game. But the optimizations and, like, technical issues are so bad, and there's so much, like, missing, that it doesn't matter. People don't see that. They see the issues.
Prioritized over long-term stability, and every time it happens, it deepens the fracture between the studios and the people that they're supposed to serve. And I feel like that's the part that the games industry has to understand. Performance is not just a technical detail, it is the foundation of whether or not people want to engage with your games at all. If a player cannot trust your game to be able to run smoothly, if they cannot trust it to even work in the first place, then why are they going to buy it? They're not going to play it. They're not going to stick around for your battle passes, expansions, or microtransactions.
And people have gotten tired of those too. The second I see a battle pass, it's already a 50% chance that I'm not going to join it.
These guys are gone. I absolutely love
A lot of in-game was missing when they released RE. No, it's not as much missing now, but
the foresight.
Look at Worlds and then look at Wilds and think what's missing, and you'll see.
Battlefield 6 developers to say that reaching a wider audience involves them targeting lower-end hardware. That is so refreshing to hear nowadays. Maybe these guys watch the channel. If you do, subscribe.
I highly doubt they're gonna actually do it though. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt though.
It feels like we've had half a decade or more of these guys talking about wanting to target the modern audience.
I don't like frame generation even in the slightest.
That is. Instead,
that's why I don't want one of the new cards. I just want like a 4070 or something. Something that's just slightly better than what I have. Something that can kind of boost me up a bit.
I promise you that if you deliver a fair price and good performance,
I mean, that's fair.
A lot more copies than you will with difficulty settings and a character with dyschromia. You know, when I talk about these issues, I think in a lot of cases, performance is probably the biggest culprit when it comes to just this overwhelming feeling of customer dissatisfaction. Like, that's just the root of where this all started. First, people got mad about how these games performed, and then they started getting mad about everything else. You know, and I've seen a lot of...
You know what game's going to be bad when the first thing you start hearing complaints about is performance?
Game developers that have come out and try to get people to just tone it down a little bit, you know, get rid of the animosity. But what these guys don't understand is that the only way you get yourself into the position in which you have this much vitriol is because you've made the players, you've made your customers feel so undervalued that they see you as an enemy and not an ally.
The issue here is the reason why it's gotten to where the point where they're so angry at, like, these people is time and time again they've done terrible. Time and time again you've asked for all this money and then not delivered. Time and time again. I'm too scared of the 50 cards because of all the bursting into flames and stuff. Don't need that. Time and time again, like, you've made it clear that you don't even seem to care about the customer. And then you get mad when we don't purchase something. And you call us, like, misogynistic and stuff like that.
The games industry does not have any quality standard. That's a problem. This is all self-policed by platforms. So if somebody goes out and they buy a game and that game doesn't work for them and for whatever reason they can't refund it, they're going to feel like they got conned. And in a lot of cases, they did get conned. So
yeah, a lot of times it feels like you're getting conned, yes.
So don't give out what you can't take back, and don't put that evil out there. You're the one that did in the first place.
Like, you created the evil, and then you're looking surprised when it hits you.
The more I look into these issues, the more I come to realize that their priorities are just so broken nowadays. I mentioned it at the start of the video, but we're at a point of visual entropy. These guys are pouring hundreds of millions of dollars and tons of man hours into these games and into their visuals, and
very little is done on mechanics, very little is done on balance, very little is done on optimization. In that order. Last one being the least.
Just because the tools are there doesn't mean you actually have to use them.
Okay.
And I think that's the problem that we're running into with a lot of
No.
these games. It's like, for whatever reason, these guys have looked at video games, and now they think that the only way they can sell them is through their visuals. It's like thumbnails, but with YouTube videos that have no substance. It's just not going to get you anywhere. And these guys have prioritized visuals for far too long, and it's gotten to the point where their games aren't even worth playing.
I stopped really like caring about new games a while back because of all the visual. They seem to only care about the visuals, and I'm like, I don't care about the visuals nearly as much as everything else.
Has anybody else noticed how it feels like almost every single other week there's some new visual tech that's being shoved into games? Look at Unreal Engine 5 Nanite with limitless polygons, Lumen for global lighting, MetaHuman creators for near perfect faces, Niagara for pixel level particle systems. I remember seeing that viral demo about 3 years ago of the Japanese train station, or that other one where they had the ancient temple with the bugs, bats, and birds that were all communicating with each other in real time. It's impressive, sure, but at the same time, every single time I hear billions of triangles in a single statue or pixels that are running on their own AI, all I can think to myself,
yes, overpriced visual vomit is correct.
is something still has to render this. And I think that's where the problem starts. I was watching a recent UE 5.6 update where the narrator was bragging about how these tools could hit 60 FPS on current gen hardware. And I thought to myself, that's the catch. Current gen, most people aren't even using 40 series GPUs, and most consoles aren't running this tech either, but these developers are building for that ceiling anyway, letting performance slide for everybody else. Hardware companies are no better, selling us RTX hair, neural shaders, and frame gen to be able to band-aid over the fact that most of these games can't even hit stable frame rates, and it's just a snowball effect. Engines, hardware, publishers, all racing towards visuals that nobody asked for, while optimization, polish, and player experience is getting left in the dust. I think that we've hit a point where fidelity just doesn't need to improve, and honestly, I think it's starting to make a lot of these games look a lot less distinct. Just look at Unreal Engine 5 titles, especially these ones that are coming from the East. They're technically stunning, but they're all starting to blur together. Black Myth Wukong, Wu-Chang Fallen Feathers, Phantom Blade Zero, different games, different studios, but visually they could all be cousins. Sure, some of that's going to be a cultural art direction, but I think there's an unmistakable sameness to Unreal Engine 5 that a lot of players are starting to pick up on. You can see the trailer and instantly know what engine it's running, and worse, two of those most hyped examples, Black Myth and Wu-Chang, both performed like garbage at launch. I think
they did perform garbage at launch. They were really good, but they performed garbage at launch.
the bigger issue with a lot of these tools is that it's almost forcing these developers to have to use them. When you're working with Unreal Engine 5, with Nanite, with Lumen, with MetaHuman, it's almost like you're being handed a Ferrari and told to drive the speed limit. The temptation is always there to push fidelity even higher, to chase those flashy tech demo moments, even though it's going to come at the expense of performance optimization, or most importantly, the actual experience of playing these games. Instead of asking, does this make our game better, these studios are asking, why shouldn't we use this? And that's how you burn years of dev time and millions of dollars making fog particles and hyper-realistic skin shaders that nobody actually cares about the minute that they pick up a controller. And the truth is, I don't want to just single out Unreal Engine 5 because I don't even think this is engine specific. It's just a industry-wide disease. Publishers
it might be a little engine specific, but he's right. It's more that they don't care about that side.
Studios obsessing over how their games look while
well, I think, to be fair to Wukong, they did fix it pretty quick. But yeah, the goal should be to have it fixed right off the bat. You should not be releasing it with these issues.
Reflecting how they actually play.
You should know about these issues beforehand.
Trend they're chasing at the moment. The problem isn't
Which
just
I think
the repetition, it's the fact
Wukong did. They just
developers
didn't
are
have it
putting
ready
time, money,
in
and
time.
effort, making sure that their games look marketable without ever stopping to ask whether their games are actually worth playing. And that's why I brought up that Tim Sweeney quote earlier, because if these games are running poorly because of the development process, that same logic applies to why so many of these games are unfun. And I think one of the rare exceptions to that rule is Expedition 33. Yes, it leaned on current gen tech, but it was optimized well enough, and more importantly, it delivered on narrative.
It is optimized very well. There's just one problem. One small problem. It has a memory leak. Please fix. Please fix.
Mechanics and on gameplay, they weren't seduced by the industry's obsession with must-play screenshots. They just built a game that people actually wanted to play. No, in most cases, you need to actually play that game. And the funny thing is, I don't even need to use a AAA looking game to prove this point, because as I'm recording this, Hollow Knight Silksong is absolutely exploding. It's a 2D Metroidvania game made by 7 people where fidelity doesn't even enter into the conversation. It's about tight controls, hypnotic art direction, and a world that pulls you in. The same thing goes for some of the games that I play the most on Steam. Terraria, Abiotic Factor. I'm looking forward to trying out Darkest Dungeon and Undertale at some point. None of these games aim for realism, yet they stand out because they're unique, distinct, and fun as hell. And you know what? Randomly, I played a demo for a game called Shroom and Gloom in one of my last videos, and my comment section was flooded with people asking me what that game was, despite the fact that I pinned it in the comment and people just ignored it. But nobody cared about the fidelity. They just cared because it looked fun.
Exactly. Fidelity is like number like 75 in like the numbers of things we care about. Like, it's not even on the radar half the time.
Most frustrating part of all of this is how much money is being set on.
That's why Wukong did so well, is because it was fun to play, even though it had a bad thing.
And how many games we are probably losing out on as a result of that? We're talking about hundreds of millions.
No, you're right. No game should have a day one patch fix. That shouldn't be a thing. These big companies like EA and stuff, they do it because that's their way of adding DRM. You can't play your game well without that patch. It doesn't work. People will just get the first patch then and add it to the... Come on.
Millions of dollars it's being poured into tech showcases, into systems that make trailers look pretty but collapse the second you put them into the hand of players. Studios are treating visual fidelity like it's a centerpiece of the meal, when in reality it's just the
performance DLC instantly makes you not a game I'm willing to buy. Instantly your company has a less of a chance of me getting your game, even if I think it looks good.
Varnish on the side, and with these projects flop, that bill doesn't just disappear, it's getting paid off in layoffs, studio shutdowns, and entire teams that get to watch their work get buried because leadership won't stop chasing screenshots. Audiences are not asking for this. Nobody is asking for this. Nobody is boycotting a game because puddle reflections aren't photorealistic. Nobody is saying, I would have bought this game if the hair was rage traced. But these publishers keep convincing...
No one says that. Some people are like, ooh, that's pretty cool. Or that they exacerbate about it, or they think, oh. But they're adding on to the fact that it's a good game. Those don't really add much.
Themselves that fidelity is the hook because it's something that they can show on a sizzle reel to be able to pitch to their investors as innovation. Meanwhile, the people that are actually buying and playing games, we just want something that runs smooth, plays well, and feels distinct. It's not just that fidelity doesn't matter. It feels like the pursuit of all of this is just actively rotting the foundation of this industry. Look, man, visuals age fast, but good game design does not. Fidelity has a shelf life. The tech demo everybody was raving about 5 years ago looks dated today, but the games that people actually come back to, the ones that actually have staying power, the ones that are actually remembered, they're being remembered because they're fun, because they run well, because there's something that's there that they offer that just feels timeless. Look at Minecraft, Terraria, Stardew Valley. None of these games won people over with cutting-edge graphics. They won them over because, well, they're just good titles. They're great titles. They're great games to play. This obsession these guys have with chasing realism isn't just wasteful, it's disposable. Studios burn mountains of cash on fidelity.
That's the other thing I don't understand. Why are you burning all this money to make it fidelity and stuff and super visual? And not realizing that all that's going to do is lower the amount of people that can play your game, for one. And then also, very rarely does it increase the amount of people playing your game.
It's outdated the moment the next graphic card cycle drops. They're mortgaging their futures on tech that doesn't hold.
Final Fantasy X and the original 7 are more loved than any Final Fantasy out right now. There's a reason why people ask me to play those and not the newer ones. Just saying. There's a clear reason.
Any value while ignoring the fundamentals that could actually keep their games alive. And the players, we can see it. That's why so many of us have started drifting towards indie and AA titles instead, because those games might not be pretty in a AAA sense, but at least they're built to last. And I think that's a tragic irony in all of this, is that all this tech, all this power, all these tools, and instead of elevating games, all they've done is just driven the industry into a corner. Developers feel obligated to use every single shiny new feature. Publishers demand graphics that sell in screenshots, and the players, we're the ones left holding the bag with bigger installs, worse performance, and a shallower experience. It's not progress that we're seeing, it's just entropy. We're seeing a lot of wasted effort. We're pouring more and more in, and we're getting less and less out of it. Meanwhile, the games that people actually love, the games that are breaking through, aren't doing it with RTX reflections or billion triangle statues with tons of pixels inside of them. They're doing it because they have clarity of vision, strong design, and a respect for players' time. And that's why this whole conversation around fidelity and performance, I think it matters so much right now, is because if the industry keeps going down this road, chasing tech instead of craft, they're not just going to see more broken launches, they're going to see the players just walk away altogether. I just don't understand what their expectations are. If you're going to...
I think... I'll try to answer that one at least. I think it's that their goal is they think they're going to be the new shiny, like, big drop game. And they're going about it all wrong. And they refuse to believe that they have to do something like indie. They feel like that's beneath them. They feel like there's no way I'm doing that.
Continue to ramp up the power demands of a lot of these games, yet at the exact same time, the vast majority of your customers cannot afford to be able to have that hardware to be able to play some of these games. How are you supposed to make any money off of that? Do you realize the financial condition that a lot of people are in today? Look at the GPU market and how many...
Like, the fact that you don't even look at Steam's charts says a lot.
Those things are being scalped and how high the prices on some of that stuff is. It's always funny when I see these companies lean into some of these features that are like 50 series GPU specific.
What's hilarious is scalping used to be illegal. I don't know when it became legal. And like, you would think a lot of these companies would like promote it being illegal. They would get that be a law. Because scalping harms you way more than it makes you money. Because now you have to wait for a lot of people to play your game because they're busy trying to get this or that because it's been scalped. Or you got the money, but because like a lot of people weren't able to afford it because it was scalped. When you release games and then you see how few people buy them, you're like, I wonder why so many few people bought them. Maybe it's because a majority of those systems that you sold were scalped and are just sitting in warehouses and stuff.
What use is that going to do for the vast majority of people that are out there?
Not being used.
You go and you look at some of the stats that are on Steam. Most people do not have these GPUs, and they probably aren't going to have them, or are likely just going to skip that generation entirely. And, you know, the consoles are in the same position as well. They're barely eking by with some of these games being able to...
Like, the very least, you should have made it for the consoles. Why are you skipping the consoles? The consoles are, like, the majority of your fan base, usually. Like, that one doesn't even make sense. Like, why are you optimizing it for something that's above what your console can reliably do?
Have decent performance for people to be able to play
Like,
them.
what?
And some of that falls on the hardware itself, but I think a lot of it falls on just the general ambition of some of these publishers and developers. You know, a theory that I have is that a lot of genuine talent has just left the games industry. And the only way that they know how to compete is on visuals now.
Exactly. Most of the actual talent is in indie or some of the older, like, more grandfathered game companies like, no, I'm not. I'm here before you. Concord Dead on Arrival be fun experience. I didn't understand, like, what they were thinking with that. But yeah, like, a majority of the talent was in indie and, like, grandfathered games, like, Larian Studios. Like, the guy that runs Larian Studios himself said it. He was like, why are y'all firing all these, like, high-end, like, devs? Like, I'm only able to hire so many. Like, I don't have the money to keep hiring all of them. I'm grabbing all of them up that I can. Because I know what they're worth. He hired some of the people that were in some of the companies you loved. So just know that the next Larian game is going to be crazy. You just know that. Like, there's clear evidence it's going to be.
And that's one thing that they have in abundance because apparently artists are a lot more available than programmers or video game design visionaries that actually know how to make something of value.
And here's the problem. They already want to replace those people. If you notice, they're trying to do the AI art. And I told this to my family, and my family kind of agrees. And a lot of my friends agree. Everyone that I've talked to about this, like when I've talked to them about this, like somehow the conversation got to that point, has agreed with me for the most part. I think like there was like some slight like interpretations from some people, but they all like agreed with my core concept, which is AI does not need to be any industry that requires human expression. Art, number one, should like any type of art or vocal like human like vocal voice acting should not have AI in it at all. Because it's going to do more harm to those industries than it's going to save you money. You will burn that bridge to the point where you can't make money from it anymore. Because there's already laws in place that are getting popped up that are saying, hey, you can't make money or you can't copyright AI. So good luck trying to sue someone when you make an AI game that actually does good. If it does good, God forbid, someone else is just going to make a copy of your game. And then you're going to try to sue them for making a copy of your game. And guess what? The judge is going to look at it and say, was this made with AI? And you're going to have to say yes. If yes is any part of that sentence, when you're answering him, he's going to say no. He's going to throw it out. Or she's going to throw it out. Because there's no case to be had. You made it with AI, they can make it the exact same thing with AI if they want. Yeah, you're saving money, but it's going to cost you way more money in the long term and the short term. Because that's what these companies don't understand is the second I find out you made your game with AI, guess what? I'll just have someone make the exact same game, make it $10 cheaper, and sell it. Now, a lot of you in chat are probably saying, that's illegal. Nope. They made it with AI. There are no rules. I can copy all I want. Can't stop me. You're not allowed to copyright AI because AI itself is built off of the backs of everything else. Like, it's trained on other stuff. And it's trained on too much stuff that it's basically its own unique thing, so it cannot be copyrighted. Because that would, in itself, limit AI. Because eventually, the AI would run out of stuff it could do. Because you'd copyright everything.
And the other part of it is, I hate to say it, it literally is just for investors. Because it's the one thing that they know that they're going to be able to understand. Look how high-tech we are. Look how realistic our games are. Aren't we so high-tech and so amazing? Don't you want to invest in us? And then these guys buy into it. They just go ahead and invest in it. We've become an afterthought. That's really what this comes down to.
Like I kept saying, it's literally they do not care about the customer. That's why Larian does so well, because it is not publicly traded. It's why a lot of these indies are doing so well. It's because they're not publicly traded. They care about their customer.
Publishers waking up to it and realizing what the issue is, but I think that by and large, a lot of these guys, they're going to have a hard time coming off the sauce because it's the only thing that they know at this point. And, you know, it's really alarming when you sit back and you listen to some of these more like deep dives or directs where these guys start talking about their game that they have coming up, and you listen to see how much of it is talking about just how the game looks rather than how the game actually...
Yeah, that's when I stopped listening on some of these games. I think y'all noticed it last time where a lot of the games just kept talking about how, look at how the visual, and you saw me doing this. And not talking, because I'm not interested. I pulled up a book on the side and I'm reading it. I'm waiting to hear something interesting. Like, I'll glance at it from now and then. I'll do this. And I'll look over to the side. Or I'll look up here at the other screen that shows the visuals. And I'll be like, Like, you know I don't like a game if I don't say anything about it. If I don't mention anything about it, it's not worth my time.
Plays. I remember when they were doing Assassin's...
And you know how much I love games, guys, so you would know that it's probably not worth your time either. It takes very little to get me interested. But if all you talk about is visuals, I'm already checked out.
Creed Shadows. I think they spent a good 5 to 10 minutes just talking about how the game could change seasons.
I don't care. Guess what game also changed seasons? Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons. Gasp! How old is that game? Over 20 years old. Yes, ancient. You was late? No, you're late.
Come on, man. You know, it's funny. When I look at some of the more high fidelity, really beautiful games that are out there, in a lot of cases, I've been noticing these guys have been using... I'm sorry, the successful ones. I need to clarify. The successful high fidelity games that we've seen, which honestly, there aren't very many. The ones that I have seen that have done well, that have also retained players because they performed well on a large set of hardware. Best example I could probably use is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. That game was absolutely gorgeous and could run on a potato. Insane what they did with that game. But in a lot of cases, I'm seeing these guys use either their own in-house engine, or they've taken an older engine and repurposed it for their own use, customizing
Tells you a lot, doesn't it?
it for what they plan to do with it. And I think that there's a huge difference in that, where with Unreal Engine 5, you're just getting this like pre-baked thing that's supposed to do everything, and it's supposed to be an industry standard, or at least
EA wants it to be that. They spend a lot of money to make it that, because they're trying to get into that market, because they saw what some of those other companies tried to do and couldn't get away with. They think they can get away with it.
They're trying to make it one, where in the past, a lot of these guys would either create their own engine or retool one, and because of that, they're tinkering with it and designing it specifically for what they're trying to do with their games, not necessarily how they're trying to get their games to look. And there's a complete difference in vision with that. But I hope things change. I hope that people see more of this. I hope that, you know, if you're seeing a company like EA waking up to it, hopefully some of the bigger publishers take notice of it as well. But chances are we probably won't. Let's just be happy that we get one win, I guess.
One win.
Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe.
Give him a like, give him a
comment down below. Tell me about your
Give him a
worst
comment.
video game performance.
Give me one.
experience. I'm down to hear.
Hey, yo.
Outside of that, that's all I got for the video. Follow me on Twitch. Follow me on Twitter. Catch me live on Fridays today. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay cool. Stay righteous. Stay safe. Peace.
Peace. Family. 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 Yep, yep. Yep, 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 yep. Yeah, opposite of love is not hate. It is indifference. Hate is a different color of love. Because love means you care. Hate means you care somewhat. Indifference means you care not at all. You can't hate something without having liked it or had some care of it in the first place. Whereas indifference is no care at all. And I've become very indifferent to a lot of those games. Like YongYea. Yeah. Copium? Well, don't forget, it has nothing to do with mods. Like, that's a big reason why I'm not gonna do it. Jumping mushroom, though, it is. It's a good mushroom.
There are few things I despise more in the games industry than seeing game companies trademark or patent game mechanics. To me,
It's gotta be the stupidest, most unforgivable, most asinine thing to do. You want to kill the gaming industry? Start patenting gaming mechanics. Like, didn't you learn from Warner Brothers? At all. They have basically fallen. They can't make a good game, and then they won't even use the mechanic they patent. And there's so many games that could do so good with that.
that's like the equivalent of somebody saying that certain types of brush strokes belong to me and no other painter can use that now.
That's literally what it is.
Or in music, saying that certain types of musical techniques are now patented and therefore other musicians can't express themselves with that. Or with books, saying that certain techniques like rhymes are now patented and only I can do rhymes and everyone else has to adhere to other techniques. It just limits creativity because ultimately it's not mechanics. And
You're taking tools out of the toolbox and not allowing them to be used. That's like taking hammers. It's not like a very fancy tool. It's like you're taking the most basic of tools away. That's what Pokemon is doing. They're taking the hammer out of the toolbox. They're taking the saw out of the toolbox.
and techniques that define art, it's how they're used to express. It's the expression of those techniques. And patenting game mechanics or trademarking game mechanics, it feels like you're limiting expression through just essentially trying to monopolize certain aspects of how you make games. We have plenty of examples of such occurrences, like how Warner Brothers patented the Nemesis system from the Middle Earth series.
And we have not had an iteration on the Nemesis system since. It's still the exact same. Still crap. Oh my lord, I've been losing my mind. We'll start after we finish this, Simu.
And they recently killed off this game that was in development, the new Wonder Woman game.
We need to react to the mushroom again for Simu.
So that patented game system is just no longer going to be utilized until Warner Brothers decides to, and nobody's allowed to take inspiration from that, because if they do, they might be up for a lawsuit. Another company that is well known for patenting game mechanics is Nintendo. And recently we discovered yet another patent that might potentially...
Which I think there's legal ground where if you haven't used it in so many years, I don't think you should be allowed to patent something forever. I don't know how long their patents last, but I think they need to expire way sooner than they do. You have enough lawyers. You can constantly reapply for it. And it gives the government more money.
Impact how
Let alone, I don't think it should be allowed.
game creators are able to express themselves. Right here we have an article from news outlet GameSpray published on September.
And the U.S. patent company has got to be so rife with corruption if these two patents were allowed. I think someone needs to go over and either sue the U.S. patent company or bring them to court somehow and have them explain why this patent was allowed specifically.
September 9th.
And apparently it sailed through the patent office. Like, it didn't actually get any scrutiny. They didn't even look at it. They're just like, oh, Nintendo, sure. I'm sorry, but how obvious do you want me to make it that you paid and you bribed your way?
2025. It reads right here.
It should be monthly to then let them feel how it is to be subscribed to something. Exactly. Yes.
Last week, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company received a U.S. patent on summoning a character and letting it fight.
How basic of a... That's the most basic, most, like, broad patent I've ever heard of being given. Did you hear what he said?
Published on September 9th, 2025. It reads right here. Last week, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company received a U.S. patent on summoning a character and letting it fight another.
Let that sink in. Think of all the games where you could summon a character and have them fight. To give you an idea how broad this is, that's Super Smash Bros. Melee. Like, they get summoned onto the thing. That's Atlas games with their personas. I summon a persona, it fights. That's your World of Warcraft pet fights. You like your pet mechanics? They're not going to be allowed in any other game but Pokemon. Or when Nintendo decides to put them in. Do you see how egregious that... Yeah, Final Fantasy Remake can't happen anymore. Because there's literally one of those in it. Like, that's a big part of it. You sent me a message. Ha! Shut up! Shut up.
It is right here in this bullet point. The more exact detail reads as follows. Exactly 1 week ago on September 2nd, 2025, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office granted Nintendo another patent, U.S. patent number 12.
Realize that the person explained this even calls it a fundamental gameplay mechanic. It's like a base game mechanic.
12,403,397, which covers the fundamental gameplay mechanic of summoning a character and letting it fight another. The related patent application was filed in March of 2023.
No objection. Tell me. I want them to tell us honestly that they looked at it and knew exactly what they were looking at and still thought it was okay.
And has now been granted by the USPTO without any objection. And this kind of ties into the way Nintendo has been suing Pocket Pair, the developers of Palworld, despite the fact that Palworld plays nothing like Pokemon, while there are aspects of its gameplay that are reminiscent, like the ability to collect monsters and creatures via a throwable device. The fact of the matter is that the game, when you kind of actually get your hands on it, it's nothing like Pokemon. You could claim that some of the pals in Palworld do look like some of the Pokemon in Pokemon, and that's an area that Nintendo can pursue, but because that's a more difficult case, Nintendo is trying to take the angle of we patented and trademarked certain gameplay mechanics that Power World is utilizing, and that angle is just completely messed up. A, the fact that you can trademark and patent game mechanics at all, and B, Power World, again, just ultimately doesn't really play anything like Pokemon. Nintendo taking the approach of we own these game mechanics for a game that ultimately doesn't resemble what Pokemon does, it's pretty egregious, and this patent will give Nintendo basically more ammunition to pull off something like that, where they can go after game developers for using mechanics that Nintendo can say we own that, and they can stifle competition that way if they feel like another project that is somewhat reminiscent in the way it resembles Pokemon because of aspects of, I don't know, monster collecting or catching, they can just kind of decide to threaten those kinds of developers or intimidate.
There's a ton of phone games that use this exact mechanic, by the way.
Them into not making Pokemon style games, when that genre of game should be something that other developers should have creativity.
Yes, that's exactly what Kirby saved them from.
With the creative freedom to kind of take their own spin on it without fearing Nintendo's wrath, because Nintendo
They have
shouldn't
become
have
what they
full
hated
ownership
most.
over that genre of games. Now, it's worth noting that more details have come to light about the patent, and Kaylee Plagg, who's been an editor for outlets like GameSpot, Polygon, and The Verge, came out and said this after reading the specific language of that patent, stating, quote, "Genuinely not to pick on this particular headline because there are a few out there, but having read the patent, it's very clearly describing auto battle as it appears in Scarlet and Violet, not like all monster summoning, LOL." In a follow-up, she continues by saying that I haven't formed a solid opinion on the patent effort in general, but I just think being precise with the language is important, which I do agree with. Like one article called out Persona being affected by this, but Persona has no mechanic at all resembling what's described in this patent.
Well, here's the thing. Persona will never be allowed to have this mechanic in the game. Even if it is auto-battling, like, that's still bad. And Power was already made. And being made, I'm pretty sure before Scarlet and Violet were made. And you got this mechanic now. I don't think they should be allowed to do that.
So that is worth bringing up, the exact language of that particular patent, but also Nintendo just has a bunch of other patents that do cover just basic mechanics of like throwing balls to collect monsters and whatnot, to summon them and to collect them. Now, what exactly is auto battle, the exact mechanic that this specific patent seems to be tackling? Well, right here we have an article from Game Rant that kind of describes it. Basically, auto battle allows you to summon your Pokemon and have it go out and battle other Pokemon without entering the battle screen and you having to like grind by engaging in a manual battle every single time. Players can auto battle almost straight away by pressing the R button. The top Pokemon in the party will be sent out to battle any wild Pokemon lingering nearby. Who wins in the battle is decided by a number of factors: the type of each Pokemon, their level, and so on. Basically, you have the Pokemon do the battle for you without commands from you, and that way just accelerates the process of battling wild Pokemon and grinding and leveling up. But even if that patent
Exactly.
specifically
They've
covers
already
auto
snuck pieces of the pizza. What stopped them from getting the rest? But yeah, idle games, a lot of them do this. So
battle, it doesn't change the fact that it is still a game mechanic that Nintendo is patenting. It doesn't change the fact that Nintendo is giving themselves legal power to ensure that if they don't like how another game utilizes that mechanic, or if Nintendo deems a game that uses a similar mechanic to be too much of a competition or too much of a threat, Nintendo can go after them. And it doesn't change the fact that it is going to limit other developers' ability to be able to utilize that mechanic in their own creative way through their own expression, because of fear that a company like Nintendo might come after them. Here we have another outlet that describes this patent more specifically. There's an article from Video Games Chronicle that says that the patent describes a situation where a console or other system is being used to run a video game from storage. The player controls a character in a virtual space. The player can perform an input command to make a sub-character appear. Example, summon another character or another creature, you name it. If there is an enemy where the sub-character appears, the player can control a battle between the sub-character and the enemy. So the player itself doesn't directly control that battle, but have the character engage in battle with that enemy. If there's no enemy where the sub-character appears, the sub-character will automatically move around. The player can move the sub-character to a different location on the battlefield, and if an enemy is there, they can control a battle between the sub-character and the enemy. Basically, the ability to control a character or entity you've summoned to battle another enemy without the player getting directly involved. Their direct involvement lies in commanding a character to go battle. Video Games Chronicle aptly highlights that this is a mechanic that could also apply to something like the Pikmin series, where you can summon Pikmin and you can command them to do battle, but you yourself don't issue input commands because the Pikmin automatically do battle.
Think about it this way. If Atlas was thinking of ever letting you use the personas out in the overfield, they can't do that anymore. This literally kills that. Not allowed. Pokemon has it.
As long as you tell them to go battle. And sure, this specific patent and mechanic may not specifically affect something like Persona, because all of those battles are manual. You don't summon a character or an
can't
entity
be idle
or a creature that you can command to do an automatic battle for you. You still have to do the turn-based manual inputs. But there are plenty of games where you can summon creatures that do automatic battle for you. Any fantasy game that has like necromancy, for example, you can...
Yeah. If you were wondering, yes, necromancy counts. Any game that has necromancy in it, gotta go.
Raise the dead or summon entity.
Which means Path of Exile, not allowed. Because you summon the creature, and it goes off. So Path of Exile 2, both have to change. Don't worry, Dismas. We're still on this part. Think of all the things that, stop. Summoner in Final Fantasy, not allowed. Go away. Because you're summoning a creature that goes off and fights. So the Summoner class in any game, gone. Necromancer class, gone. The wizard being able to summon elementals, gone. How many more things you want gone? I think someone needs to challenge the patent. Or someone needs to go up to whoever's running the Nintendo right now and slap them in the face. Yes, a lot of things are going to be gone since it's so broad of a patent. It doesn't even, stipulate anything it doesn't stipulate that it has to be Pokemon. It doesn't stipulate that it has to be, it could stipulate so many things, but, let alone the fact that they were able to do it. It doesn't make sense why, they would allow that patent. That patent's so broad.
He's from Beyond, and then they serve as companion characters who automatically do battle for you when there is a hostile entity approaching you. That basically describes this mechanic that Nintendo's patenting. In Elder Scrolls, you can summon an entity from Beyond and have it do battle for you.
Elder Scrolls gone.
You can play as a necromancer that can summon undead entities and have them do battle for you.
Gone.
So are those now under risk of being sued by Nintendo because this patent was approved? That's ridiculous. What Nintendo is patenting here is basically summonable companions who will come to your aid. That's in so many freaking games, and that will be in so many freaking games. It is a central mechanic to a lot of games where you can summon entities and have them do battle for you. That's not a new concept that Nintendo came up with. And then on top of this, keep in mind that this isn't the only patent related to Pokemon-esque mechanics or mechanics related to, summoning creatures or characters who you can control or have them do battle for you. Nintendo has a bunch of patents that they've used against Power World to try to essentially diminish that competition. So, for example, with the lawsuit against Power World, Nintendo
Back
essentially
alert.
alleged
Okay,
that Power World
Demas.
infringes on 3 existing
Have a good
patents that
lurky
are
lurk.
related to monster catching gameplay, including summoning pals by throwing pal spheres and using pals as vehicles like gliders. The fact that Nintendo can just have ownership over that and they get to decide who gets to utilize those mechanics and who doesn't based on who they deem to be dangerous competition or not. Mechanics that are so broad that a lot of games could utilize them in all kinds of creative ways. It's just like the idea of Nintendo having all that control is just gross to me. The idea of any company, period, having any semblance of full-fledged control over a specific kind of mechanic, over a specific genre of games.
It's sickening. Like, say what you will about the Warner Brothers mechanic, but at least it doesn't really, like, it was kind of its own thing. It was a new mechanic. They created it. Like, they paid a lot of money to create it. Like, there's some arguments there, but at least it doesn't affect a whole swath of games. Like, it's not like a super common and super like used mechanic. It's a new mechanic. Like, we can't use it right now because of them, but at the same time, it's not affecting all these other games that are already out, let alone ones probably being made right now.
Is just gross to me because it is just so limiting in the art form that is game making, and how all developers, including Nintendo, the way they've evolved themselves is by taking inspiration from each other and one-upping each other and just kind of evolving together as they exchange ideas while still ensuring that the games that they ship remain unique enough. Now, it's worth knowing the distinction between trademarks and patents, as Video Games Chronicle describes here. Basically, trademark law says that a company could lose its trademark if it doesn't challenge any infringements, whereas with patents, the entity who owns the patent to something can choose not to pursue any other company that decides to use it, and only do so when it feels its own IP is being threatened. So with a trademark, Nintendo would have an obligation to pursue anything that encroaches that trademark, whereas with a patent, Nintendo won't lose the patent if somebody else uses a mechanic that is similar to the patented mechanic, but it does give Nintendo legal leeway to pursue and go after anything that does encroach on that patent if Nintendo feels like their IP is being threatened. So Nintendo,
for those of you who might be slightly confused, basically, they just got a little button now that says, oh, you're indie, go away. This is why this is bad. There will be no indies if this is just this is allowed. So Power World has to win to set legal precedents, because then every other lawyer that ever gets challenged by Nintendo's lawyers just needs to point at Power World's win. Yeah, basically. They're telling all other indies that even want to go into, like, creatures and stuff, screw off.
Can pick and choose who they allow the use of things that they've patented and who they don't allow. The outcry, the outrage against this situation,
I think patents need to be under that same rule that they have to go after everyone.
Nintendo Everything reported on this, and you can see right here, there are more tweets than likes on this article, and plenty of people basically advocating for the abolishment of anything that involves patenting game mechanics. Hell, the top post here reads, abolish gameplay patents, or just the very concept of being able to do so. You've got a bunch of quote tweets saying similar things like patents for gameplay mechanics just shouldn't exist, period. It's like trying to patent a chord progression. That's what I mean. Musical techniques, paintbrush techniques, or writing techniques. It's all like things that help you create something, but it's not the creation itself. The unique creation itself is, again, the expression, the unique expression of how you utilize all of these mechanics to create something that is just uniquely yours. On Reddit, you already have plenty of folks talking about this. Top posts saying things like, there's a line between we need copyright patent law in principle and the current implementation of copyright patent law is kind of broken and we need to find this line stat. I do agree that with patent laws, especially where video games are concerned and where game mechanics can be patented, it is broken as hell that this is allowed to happen.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! There's a few games that do this. JoJo, I'm pretty sure there's the stands count like that. And then there's Persona. Like
at all. The ability to patent such game mechanics means that entire genres can be owned by specific companies, and that is just
I don't
something
like
that
that.
should not be allowed in what is ultimately a creative medium, what is an artistic form. Or at the very least, that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions
a
are
lot of
on
people's take.
Nintendo's latest patent that has been approved as far as game mechanics are concerned, and what you think about the idea.
I knew where the patent
of
office
companies
was. It'd be
patenting
burned
game
to the
mechanics
ground.
as a whole. Share
That's
your
a joke,
thoughts in
by
the
the way,
comments
but
below,
still.
and to be further updated on all things gaming
Dragon
news, reviews,
Fire.
and discussions, stay tuned right here on YongYea. I'll see
You
you
guys
next
next time.
Yong out.
All right. All right.